Hare Krishna, welcome to this 18-day session on the systematic study of the greatest, the topmost among all the Vedic scriptures, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Before we begin today's session, I shall chant a few prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayeta Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. This is Madhavananda Das here, and I would like to welcome all of you again for the concluding session of this 18-day session on the systematic study and analysis of the greatest, the topmost among all the Vedic scriptures, the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam has been mentioned to be the essence of all the Vedic knowledge, the cream of the nectarian milk of the Vedic wisdom. It is regarded to be the ripened fruit of the Vedic desire tree. It is the most essential knowledge presented by the Supreme Lord in his literary incarnation as Vedavyasa for the supreme benefit and deliverance of the entire world, of the entire universe. We have been discussing the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is mentioned in the Garuda Purana that Dvadasha Skandha Yuktoyam Shatavichcheda Samyutaha Grantho Shtadasha Sahasraha Srimad Bhagavatabhidaha. The Srimad Bhagavatam contains 12 cantos, 335 chapters and 18,000 shlokas, and we have been studying and analyzing the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that contains 19 chapters and 808 shlokas. So we have seen how the great king Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Arjuna and Subhadra, the son of Uttara and Abhimanyu, received the age of Kali at the conclusion of the Dwapar Yuga, the age of Kali, the present age. Kali began, which is the most spiritually degraded among all the yugas. So this Kali Yuga was received by Parikshit Maharaj when this Kali Purusha was engaged in attacking a cow and bull, which were actually religion personified and the Mother Earth. Parikshit gave them protection, and after some time, when Parikshit had gone to the ashram of a great sage by name Shamika Rishi, he felt intense hunger and thirst, and being not received by the great sage, Parikshit felt offended, and in anger he placed a dead snake on the neck of Shamika Rishi. When this came to the knowledge of the son of Shamika Rishi, whose name is Shringi, Shringi was infuriated and immediately pronounced a very severe curse that Parikshit Maharaj would die in the next 7 days by the bite of a powerful snake bird called Takshaka. In all these explanations, the Srimad Bhagavatam and all the great acharyas have very clearly established and clarified that this was actually the plan and scheme of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, who had the dual objectives. Although Parikshit Maharaj, being a great Mahabhagavata, could never be subjected to the mundane material influences of anger and acting in an offensive way towards a great sage like Shamika Rishi, this was all done and induced by the Supreme Lord himself, with the dual objectives. The first one being to call his pure devotee Parikshit Maharaj back to his eternal kingdom at the earliest as soon as possible, and with the second objective of broadcasting the supreme knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavatam through the medium of Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, and by this methodology to the entire world, to the entire universe. So now we also observed that how Shamika Rishi himself was highly unapproved. He did not approve, he completely disapproved of this action taken by his son Shringi. Actually, it was also the plan of Kali Purusha to influence and spoil the intelligence of an immature and unintelligent. He has been mentioned many times in the previous chapter as avipakva buddhi, one with insufficient knowledge and wisdom. So Kali Purusha influenced this sage Shringi to curse the powerful and the great King Parikshit Maharaj. So now let us begin the study of the 19th chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the final concluding chapter of the first canto. Suta Goswami continues to narrate to the sages of Naimisharanya. Suta vacha mahipatestvata tat karma garhyam vichintayan atmakritam sudurmanaha aho maya nichamanaryavat kritam niragasi brahmani gudha tejasi. Parikshit Maharaj, after coming back to his palace, back to his kingdom, he began deeply contemplating about the action that he had taken against Shamika Rishi. And he understood that he had committed a very great mistake. This was unprecedented, as also stated in the 18th chapter, that abhuta purvaha sahasa. Such an action was highly unexpected of a great spiritualist and a devotee like Parikshit Maharaj. So even Parikshit himself was astonished and surprised at his own action, but somewhere he saw the plan of the Supreme Lord. He understood to be some signal given by the Supreme Lord for a future course of action. So the pure devotees of the Lord, being always surrendered to the Lord, see in all circumstances, favorable or unfavorable, the direction and the signal of the Supreme Lord. So as he began to contemplate, he also was very remorseful and regretful of the action that he had taken, the offense that he had committed at Shamika Rishi by garlanding him with a dead snake. So as Parikshit Maharaj was in deep contemplation, he heard Sachintayan Itha kathamatha shrinod mune sutokto niritistakshakakhyaha. It is mentioned in 1.19.4 that Sachintayan, when Parikshit Maharaj was considering about the events that had taken place, Atha ashrinod yatha, he heard the news of his impending and imminent death by the curse of the Brahmana boy in just the next 7 days. So Parikshit Maharaj received the notice of his imminent and impending death, and this was actually a very, very short notice. He came to know that he is now going to die in just 7 days' time. He only had 7 days left to live. So now, this is a very instructive and a very important lesson that is going to be imparted in this final chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. When a person comes to know about his impending death, what steps must one take? What measures should we take? What did Parikshit Maharaj do when he heard about his imminent death? In a very short notice, he had only 7 days to live. This is a very important thing to know. We need to know and understand and apply the perfect art of living as per the directions given by the teachings in Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of the most important lessons of the art of living is to know the art of dying. So just like a student may prepare and study for the entire academic year, and then he has to face the final examination. So one has to learn the art of study and also the art of preparing and appearing for the final examination. So likewise, one has to prepare oneself in the art of living and also in the final examination of our life, which is the point of death, at which time we have to give up this material body. So what did Parikshit Maharaj do? This is very, very important for all of us to understand, because at least Parikshit Maharaj had the knowledge that he is going to live for 7 more days. Whereas in the case of each and every one of us, do we even have the knowledge that we are going to live for the next 70 years or 7 years or 7 months or 7 days or even 7 hours or 7 seconds? We don't have any definite clue as to how long more we are going to live. We may live for 7 years or 70 years, or even only for the next 7 seconds. This material world is a very, very volatile and temporary place. In the scriptures, this material world is described to be ashashvatam, temporary, and kshanabhangura. Any moment, everything can be finished. So now, Parikshit Maharaj, being the greatest transcendentalist of his time, is going to teach us what exactly must one do, what one should do, what one should avoid, what one should not do when we have to prepare for the final examination of our life, the point of death. Parikshit Maharaj had the clear idea that he still had 7 days life. Whereas, how much more should we be prepared, because we don't have any clue whether we are going to live for 7 years or 7 moments also. So therefore, as it is stated, there is a saying that a materialistic person lives in such a way as if he is not going to die at all, whereas a spiritualist lives in such a way that he is prepared and ready to face death at any moment. So that should be the lesson that we should all learn from this personal narration of what exactly did Parikshit Maharaj do. So normally we find that an ordinary response, the response of a common ordinary person to imminent death would be that if anyone comes to know that he is supposed to die in the next 7 days or in about 7 months, if the notice of death comes, actually the notice is always there, because in this material world everyone is maratya, is bound and destined to die. Death is the inevitable truth, and therefore we must be properly prepared to meet this eventuality. So in the normal perspective, if anyone gets the notice of death, then the response normally would be to now fulfill the remaining balance of whatever desires and material aspirations that we may have. And that is why even when a person is awarded, is given the capital punishment, the death penalty, even at that time it is asked, do you have any last wish that you want to fulfill? So in this way, actually, it is also very important to know that in the material atmosphere, in material existence, our attachment is so deep rooted that even till the last breath of our life, even till the last moment of our life, we cling and we are attached to these material desires. So now, this is the ordinary, normal response to the notice of death. Now let us try to learn what Parikshit Maharaj did when he got a very short notice about his imminent and impending death. Mune sutokto niritistakshakakyaha sasadhu mene nachirena takshaka nalam prasaktasya virakti karanam. It is mentioned in 1.19.4 that Parikshit regarded this. Normally the news of death would be the most heartbreaking, would be the saddest news for anyone to hear. But whereas for a spiritualist like Parikshit Maharaj, when he heard of his imminent death, sa sadhu mene, he considered to be a very good news. That very good. Why? Nalam prasaktasya virakti karanam. He took it as the opportunity to completely sever and cut off all his material attachments and connections and completely take shelter and surrender to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna and prepare for attaining the highest destination in life. So, we can understand this kind of a response from a spiritualist, a spiritual response to the imminent inevitability of death. We can understand with a simple example. Just imagine, just picturize the situation of a person in a very, very dark and a very torturous prison house, a jail. where a person is kept in a high security jail and is normally in a jail, one has to undergo a lot of punishments, a lot of difficulties and miseries and sufferings and trials and tribulations. And suddenly, if that person receives the news that there has been some special consideration, a special summons has been issued in his case, and he has been called by the president or the prime minister that in the next 7 days he would be freed from all the miseries and sufferings, and he would be freed from the confinement of the prison house and the jail, and he can directly have the audience and go and live in the palace, in the home of the king or the president or the prime minister. What would be the situation of such a person? Would he be sad, or would it be a heartbreaking news that he is going to be freed from jail? Or would it be the most happy news, the happiest good news for that person? A person who is in spiritual wisdom would welcome this as the greatest happy news, whereas one who is completely in ignorance would start thinking that how can I leave this prison house, how can I leave this jail, how can I leave this moth-eaten blanket of mine, how can I leave the food, it may be most unpalatable and the wretched kind of food, and the most wretched kind of existence may be there, but still a person who is completely attached and has no clear clue or conception of what life outside the confinement of the jail is. For such a person, this may be a very bad news. So, but for a realized person like Parikshit Maharaj, in fact, this samsara, this material world is exactly compared to a karagraha, to a jail, to a prison house, where all the living entities, all the jivatmas in this samsara have been pushed into the darkest, deepest regions and confinements of ajnana, of andhakara, of ignorance and illusion of maya. And there is the constant misery and suffering and trials and tribulations of janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, of rebirth, old age, disease and death. So, if someone comes to know that he is going to die, and if his destination is clear, that he is now going to attain freedom from this cycle of birth and death and go back to the eternal supreme kingdom of God, to be in the direct association of the supreme absolute truth, the supreme Lord Shri Krishna, this would be the most happy news. And therefore we find this response and reaction from Parikshit Maharaj is not at all surprising or astonishing, that when he heard the news of his impending imminent death, he welcomed it, he accepted it as a very good and happy news. There are some foolish commentators who quote some unknown sources. There is no such mention in the original text of the Srimad Bhagavatam, who say that Parikshit Maharaj became very frightful, became very fearful when he heard the news of his imminent death, and he took many measures to protect himself in all ways. He made a tower and in which he went and tried to protect himself from any kind of attack from death. Now, where do all these most foolish commentators, where do they get this source from? Nowhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam is it mentioned that Parikshit became fearful. He in fact, now he became completely fearless. And what did he do next? It is very beautifully explained in 1.19.5. Atho vihaye mamamum cha lokam vimangshitau heyataya purastad krishnangri sevam adhimanyamana upavishat prayamamatyanadyam. The measures, the steps taken by Parikshit Maharaj are most instructive for all of us to understand and follow. Parikshit Maharaj, Vimangshitaha, he deeply contemplated all the various options, all the various things that he could do. He definitely understood that now he has to completely devote himself to the path of spiritual life. Now, even in the path of spiritual life, he considered all the thousands of paths of yoga and self-realization. Atho vimangshitau, but heyataya purastad. He rejected even all the other practices of yoga and self-realization and took up the ultimate, the most important, the most effective and the highest, topmost path of self-realization and God realization, which is Krishnangri Sevam Adhimanyamana. He regarded, rejecting all other practices of self-realization, he accepted surrender to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna to be the greatest, to be the highest, and to be the most immediate. He could not waste even a moment in the slow and the gradual processes of spiritual elevation and advancement. He had to take the immediate, express and the most effective path of complete and exclusive surrender to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So in this way, Parikshit Maharaj upavishat prayamamagtyanadhyam atho vihaya, he immediately gave up. This is also a very important thing to know. Parikshit Maharaj was not an ordinary person. He was the sovereign ruler of the entire earth, the entire world. He had unmatched and unparalleled material riches and possessions. He had a very loving family. He had everything that a materialist person could ever aspire for. So just imagine a materialist, even at the notice of his impending imminent death, would now think of finally fulfilling some unfulfilled material desires. But here Parikshit Maharaj, who had everything that we can ever, a materialist could ever dream of, could ever think of possessing. He had the riches of the entire world. What did he do? He in fact immediately gave up. He renounced all his material possessions, his family, his everything, and he left. He went to the banks of the sacred river Ganga, which is mentioned in this verse as Upavishat Prayam Amartyanadhyam, as the Amartya Nadi, or the river that grants immortality. The river Ganga is further glorified very highly in 1.19.6 as Yavailasat Shri Tulasi Vimrishra Krishnangri Sevyabhyadikambunetri Punati Seshanubhayatra Lokan Kastam na Sevetamarishyamanaha. Yavailasat Shri, the sacred rivers of the water Ganga. Ganga is glorified in all the scriptures to be the most sacred and the purest among all the rivers, because Yavai Lasat, it is always resplendent. It has got a most precious and the most valuable spiritual treasure in it. What is the most valuable spiritual treasure contained in the sacred waters of the Ganga river? It contains Krishnangri Renu Tulasi Vimrishra. It contains the dust of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna and the Tulasi leaves from his lotus feet. Actually, later in the 8th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we shall learn how the origin of the sanctity of the river Ganga is because the Supreme Lord Krishna, in his incarnation as Vamana, the river Ganga flowed by washing the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, and therefore it is the most sacred river. It is so pure and it is so glorified that Punati Lokan Ubhayatra Sa Ishan. It purifies the entire universe, including all the Devatas, including Sa Ishan, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. And therefore, Kastam Na Seveta Marishyamana. One who is destined to die, Marishyamanaha. Who would be that foolish person who is about to die, who would not take shelter of the banks of the waters of the river Ganga? So this is a very, very instructive part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the ordinary course of things, whenever there is a signal of imminent death, what do? I have already explained one aspect where people try to now, in fact, in a very, very insane way, they think that whatever material desires may be balanced, may be left out, let us try to fulfill them to the maximum in the whatever duration of life is left. Or inevitably, most of the people in today's environment, in today's lifestyle, they are either, as soon as there is any signal of imminent death, they are packed in some ambulance and taken to some hospital or super specialty hospital, and in some ICU, in some intensive care unit, on some ventilator, they are put to somehow or the other to extend whatever duration of life may be there, but in the most wretched, in the most unnatural, in the most artificial manner, finally bereft of any consciousness, a person dies. Whereas the spiritual, the devotional way of attaining death is explained here in the text of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in all the Vedic scriptures, that one has to actually prepare one's consciousness and come to spiritual or devotional consciousness. It is very clearly explained throughout the Bhagavad Gita and even in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Antakala, the final point of our death, we should be in full spiritual consciousness, by which this is the special gift of the human form of life, that in the human form of life, if we attain death with full consciousness of the spirit of the Supreme Spirit, the Paramatma of the Supreme Lord, then our attainment of the human form of life after the cycle of birth and death in 84 lakh species of life would be successful. We can attain moksha, liberation, and go back home, back to Godhead. And if we go to some kind of if we take measures and steps to somehow prolong our life without having the least idea and conception, without even understanding that actually at the point of death we have to prepare our consciousness, and instead we are exactly going in the opposite direction. We are taking exactly the contrary, exactly the viparita, exactly the contrary steps by becoming completely bereft of all consciousness and in coma. If we have to die, this would be the most inglorious and wretched death for a human being. Even the animals die in better consciousness than human beings who die in coma without any consciousness, bereft of consciousness. Human life is meant to prepare the best consciousness, especially at the time of death, and this is the path of spiritual life. A person who dedicates himself to the path of spiritual life, who surrenders to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna with the intention, with the resolve to absorb his consciousness at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Why should he or her, why should such a person have any fear and anxiety that who would take care of him at the point of death? The Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is taking care of even the 84 lakh species of life right from the time of conception. He is protecting even in the womb of one's mother, and would he, throughout our life, at every step of our life, one who is protecting us. Would he not protect us at the time of death when we have taken the resolve to surrender to him? So we should not be so foolish, faithless, and in fact insane to follow the path of ignorance. We should learn from the Srimad Bhagavatam how we should prepare for our death by elevating our consciousness at the time of death. Any person with even a little spiritual intelligence, a person bereft of any spiritual intelligence or wisdom, is anyway bound to fall in the whirlpool of repeated cycle of birth and death. But a spiritually wise person, a person with even an iota of spiritual wisdom and intelligence, we should learn what our forefathers used to do. They also would take similar steps, that they would go especially to the holy place of Varanasi or Kashi. Earlier, people, whenever they would wish to now end their material connections and material affairs and prepare themselves for death, they would take the firm resolve and determination that now I wish to give up all material affairs, to completely detach oneself from material activities, and then they would travel, they would go to Kashi. For what reason? Kashi Maranam, just to die in Kashi, just to prepare our consciousness at the time of death by going to a holy place like Kashi on the banks of the very sacred river Ganga. It is stated in the Puranas that if anyone dies in the holy place of Kashi, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishwanatha personally comes to that person and chants in the ear of the dying person Rama Taraka Mantra 3 times, Shri Rama, Shri Rama, Shri Rama, and sends that person completely free from material bondage, gives him moksha and sends him back to the eternal kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Loka. This is the way to die. This is the most glorious way to die. And this can be understood by a person having some spiritual intelligence. Those who are bereft, who do not have any spiritual understanding, can hardly appreciate or understand these spiritual principles. Here we find Parikshit Maharaj, when he heard of his imminent death, he immediately gave up everything and went to the banks of Ganga. The exact location, the place where Parikshit went to, is located in the state, even today it is located in the state of Uttar Pradesh. It is a place called Shukatal. It came to be known by after the name of the speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami. Even today, the exact spot where Parikshit Maharaj sat on the banks of river Ganga is located. It is on the highway between New Delhi and Haridwar. It is on a diversion from the city of Muzaffarpur, about 15 kilometers from the national highway. So the main point to understand here is that Parikshit has now taken these steps. This is the ideal way of dying to face death. So he has left all material connections and come to the banks of river Ganga. So especially for a devotee, for a pure devotee, the best place is to go to the topmost of all holy places, the realm of Vrindavana, Mathura, the 12 forests of Vrindavana, or Jagannathapuri, Dwarakapuri, or Mayapur, and in complete being absorbed in a spiritual consciousness of the Supreme Lord to attain the highest perfection of life. This is the ideal way to die. So this is the lesson being imparted here. Parikshit has now come to the banks of Ganga, and itivyeva chidya sapandaveyaha prayopavesham prati vishnupadyam dadhau mukundangrimananya bhavo munivrato mukta samasta sangaha. Parikshit, who is addressed here as Pandaveyaha, Praya Upavesham, then took the firm resolve to fast until death, to fast completely from all food and water for the next 7 days. And he sat on the banks of Vishnupadi. Vishnupadi is another name of the sacred river Ganga. Ganga Maya is highly glorified, as I mentioned earlier as well. Even the great Acharya Shankaracharya has beautifully glorified Ganga Maya in his Ganga Stotram as तव चेन्मातः स्रोतः स्नातः पुनरपि जठरे सोऽपि न जातः नरकनिवारिणि जाह्नवी गङ्गे कलुषविनाशिनि महिमोत्तुङ्गे. Tavachen mataha srotaha snataha. Anyone who takes bath in the river Ganga or dies on the banks of the rivers dies on the banks of river Ganga, Punarapi Jathare Sopina Jataha. He is never reborn in this material world. Narakanivarini Jahnavi Gange. The river Ganga delivers one from all hellish planets, and Kalusha Vinashini Mahimottunge. This is the great glory of Ganga, that it completely purifies one from all material contamination. So here this is very, very important for all of us to learn how one should die by following in the footsteps of Maharaj Parikshit. He has severed all his material connections, come to the banks of the river Ganga, and taken the firm decision to fast until death on the banks of Vishnupadi Ganga, the Ganga which emanates from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, and therefore another name of Ganga is Vishnupadi. And what did Parikshit Maharaj do? Dadhau mukundang grimananya bhavo munivrato mukta samasta sangaha. He completely fixed his mind and began to meditate on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Here Krishna is mentioned as Mukunda. The name Mukunda itself means one who gives muktim dadati, one who gives mukti. Not only mukti, Mukunda means one who gives mukti and ananda. So because the original constitutional position of the soul is Anandamayobhyasat. So even after ordinary mukti, if one is not reconnected with the Supreme Lord Krishna, he cannot relish, he cannot be situated in the platform of real Ananda. And therefore, Parikshit Maharaj has taken the most suitable, the most ideal steps to attain the highest perfection of life. He now began to completely meditate on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Dadhau mukundangriman ananya bhavo munivrato mukta samasta sangaha. Mukta samasta sangaha, completely cutting off all material attachments. Parikshit has now come to the banks of river Ganga to completely absorb himself in meditation on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So this is the most ideal way to die, and this is going to be the greatest lesson for all the people, for all the spiritualists, for all the transcendentalists of the world. And therefore, it is mentioned in 1.19.8 that all these great personalities, the spiritualists of the entire universe, also came to the place where Parikshit Maharaj had come. So it is stated here that Tatropajagmur bhuvanam punana mahanubhava munayassa siddhaha prayena tirtha bhigamapadeshaihi swayam hi tirthani punanti santaha. Tatra upajagmuhu. At that time, all the great minds, all the great thinkers, accompanied by all their disciples and sages who were so advanced that they themselves could create places of pilgrimages by their mere presence. Wherever they would go, that place would become a place of pilgrimage. Prayena tirtha abhigamapadeshaihi swayam hi tirthani punanti santaha. All of them arrived there to learn this most important lesson being given by the greatest Mahabhagavata, the greatest devotee of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, Parikshit. So even they were eager to learn and witness this very, very important event that was going to happen. What is that event? The death of Maharaj Parikshit, the most ideal death. And all the great spiritualists and transcendentalists have come to witness this instructive event. And who are they? Some of the names have been mentioned in 1.19.9 and 10 as Atrirvasishthascha vanasharadvan arishtanemir bhrigurangirascha parasharo ghadhisutotharama utathya indra pramadedmavahau medhatithirdevala akštisheno bharadvajo gautama pippaladaha maitreya aurvaha kavasha kumbhayonir dvaipayano bhagavan naradascha. From all the various parts of the universe, there arrived great sages like Atri, Chavana, Sharadvan, Arishtanemi, Bhrigu, Vasishtha, Parashara, Vishwamitra, Angira, Parashurama, Utathya, Indra Pramada, Idbhavahu, Medhatiti, Devala, Ashtishena, Bharadvaja, Gautama, Pippalara, Maitreya, Aurva, Kavasha, Kumbhayoni, Dvaipayana, and the great personality Narada. So all of them arrived to witness this great event. Not only these sages, it is further mentioned that Anye cha devakshi brahmakshi varya rajakshi varya arunadayascha nanaksheya pravaran sametan abhyakshya raja shirasava vande. All other varieties of brahmakshis, all other kinds of sages, including the brahmakshis, the devakshis, the rajakshis, the arunadayas, and all kinds of people accompanied by their disciples, all of them came here. And this is now going to be the greatest assembly of all the greatest personalities of this universe. So just like we have sometimes the UN General Body meeting once in a year, where all the countries come together to discuss some important agendas, now here all the greatest spiritual personalities of the universe have come to the banks of Ganga to witness this great event of the death of Maharaj Parikshit. When Parikshit saw that all these great spiritualists have come, immediately Shirasava Vande, he Abhyakshya Raja, he worshipped all of them and he bowed down, he offered his respectful obeisances to all these great personalities. Sukhopavishteshvatateshu bhuyaha krita pranamah svachikingshitam yat vignapayamasa vivikta cheta upasthito abhigrihita panihi. After all these sages had seated themselves comfortably, Maharaj Parikshit, humbly standing before them with folded hands, he informed them of his decision to fast until death. And he also expressed to them that now, having made his decision, he appealed and requested all of them to chant the glories and narrations of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, which are the ultimate nectar and panacea for a person who is about to die. So, the firm resolve and determination of Parikshit Maharaj is very beautifully expressed in 1.19.15 by Parikshit as Tammopayatam pratiyantu vipra ganga cha devi dhrita chittamishe dvijopasrishtaha kuhakastakshako va dashatvalam gayata vishnu gathaha. Please accept me as a completely surrendered soul, and may Mother Ganga also accept me as a completely surrendered soul. Now, Gayata Vishnu Gathaha, please narrate the glorification of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Please chant the narrations of Vishnu Gathaha, Gayata Vishnu Gathaha. Please narrate the wonderful divine spiritual narrations of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. And by this firm decision to hear Krishna Gatha, I am completely fearless. I have placed the lotus feet of my Supreme Lord Shri Krishna in my heart. I am completely fearless. Even right now, Parikshit says that I am prepared to die, even if the takshaka or whatever magical thing or whatever other cause of death may come. I am prepared for that. It can come, the snake bird takshaka. I don't mind even if it comes and bites me this very instant. I am completely absorbed and completely surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, and I am prepared to attain liberation and go back home, back to Godhead. So this should be the ideal perspective and conception at the time of death for a human being. One should not be like the animals who are always fearful of death. Always the animals, even while eating, are seeing here and there. If you observe a bird, it is always fearful where some prey, where it would become a prey to some other animal. So this is the existence of the animals. A human being should train oneself and be sufficiently spiritually advanced so that before death one becomes completely fearless about imminent death, and thus he is perfectly prepared because one can then realize what one's spiritual destination would be. So this is that kind of an ideal situation being explained in the example of Parikshit Maharaj, that he is saying that right now I am completely fearless. Whatever either Takshaka or any other magical thing or anything else in the form of death may come, I am ready, I am prepared. So in the next verse 1.19.16, Parikshit Maharaj says that whatever may happen to me, I am not bothered. I am prepared for death. But I just have 3 aspirations. I have 3 desires. What are these 3 desires? Definitely these are not the desires, these are not material desires of a materialistic person. These are the most sublime and the exalted spiritual aspirations, the spiritual desires which must be retained even at the time of death. And that is the eternal spiritual desire of the living entity. So let us understand what are these 3 spiritual aspirations of Parikshit Maharaj. He says, Punascha bhuyad bhagavatyanante rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu mahatsu yam yam upayami srishtim maitryastu sarvatra namo dvijebhyaha. I pray that only for these 3 things. First, Bhagavati Anante Ratihi. The first thing that I aspire for, that even if I have to take my birth again in this material world, because this is the position of a Jivan Mukta, a liberated person who is still in the material world. He is not very particular that he has to go back to the spiritual world, because having attained liberation right in this material world as a Jivan Mukta, one is no longer afraid or fearful even of the cycle of birth and death, because even if one has to undergo the cycle of birth and death, but in a liberated consciousness, in the spiritual devotional consciousness, one is always upheld beyond the status of liberation by the potency of one's devotional consciousness. So that devotional and spiritual consciousness is that the first thing is Bhagavati Anante Ratihi, that I should have complete attachment, Rati, to the Supreme Lord Bhagavan Krishna. So this is the first spiritual attainment or aspiration. And the second is Mahatsu Yam Yam Prasangaha Tadashrayeshu. The first thing is Bhagavati Anante Ratihi. Second is Tad Ashrayeshu Prasangaha, association with the pure devotees of the Lord. And the third is Maitriyastu Sarvatra. Let me have a friendly attitude and a friendly relation with all the living beings, with everyone. So these are the three very, very important spiritual aspirations of transcendentalists: complete attachment to the Supreme Lord, number 2, association with the pure devotees of the Lord, and number 3, a friendly attitude towards all living beings. So this should be the aspiration even of a spiritualist, even of the most advanced transcendentalist. So now Parikshit Maharaj, in the best direction, has taken the best decisions to attain the best destination after death. So in this way, itismarajadhyavasaya yuktaha prachina muleshu kusheshu dhiraha udanmukho dakshinakula aste samudra patnya swasutanyasta bharaha. Parikshit Maharaj has sat with this firm resolve and determination on the Dakshina Kula, on the southern banks of the river Ganga. He has sat Prachina Muleshu. He has sat down on a seat of kusha or darbha, a seat of straw, a straw mat, with the straw roots facing the eastern direction, and he himself, Udanmukhaha, Parikshit, was facing the northern direction. So in this way, the scene of Parikshit Maharaj surrounded by the greatest spiritual personalities on the banks of the river Ganga is described. And at that time, evam cha tasmin naradeva deve prayopavishte divideva sanghaha prashasya bhumau vyakiran prasuner muda muhur dundubhayaschaneduhu. When Parikshit Maharaj sat with the firm resolve to fast until death, even the Devaha, even the Devatas of the heavenly planets were astonished. Even they aspire and learn, wish to learn from this ideal path towards death taken by Parikshit Maharaj, and with great joy and pleasure, Divi Deva Sanghaha, the host of the Devatas, all of them gathered in the sky, and Vyakiran Prasunaihi, they constantly showered a stream of fragrant flowers. And in this way, the Devatas worshipped, and they worshipped Parikshit Maharaj. And therefore we should learn here that a great devotee of the order of Parikshit Maharaj is worshipable even by the Devatas. So therefore, a person should aspire to become a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. Not that he would be worshipable even for the Devatas, but this is the great glory of a pure devotee, that even the great Devatas in the heavenly planets, Indra, Chandra, Vayu, and all of them, they worship a pure devotee. They are all showering flowers upon Parikshit Maharaj, and celestial drums were sounded upon this event during this time when Parikshit expressed his determination to fast until death. Even the great sages who had arrived there, Maharshayo vai samupagataye prashasya sadhvityanumodamanaha uchu prajanugraha shila sara yaduttama shloka gunabhirupam. All the great sages highly appreciated and glorified the decision taken by Parikshit Maharaj, Sadhu Mene, and they were very pleased to see this demeanor and this kind of position taken by Parikshit Maharaj. So they all expressed their great surprise and astonishment. They say that nava idam rajakshivarya chitram bhavatsu krishnam samanuvrateshu yedhyasanam rajakirita jushtam sadyo jahur bhagavat parshvakamaha. It is not at all surprising and astonishing that Parikshit, you have immediately given up all your material possessions, your throne of the entire world, and by which you had conquered all the directions of the world, just because to achieve Sadyo Jahuhu. You have immediately given up all your material connections, but for what sake? What is your objective? Bhagavat Parshvakamaha. It is very, very clear even to the sages here that what is going to be the final destination of Parikshit Maharaj. He has taken this decision. He is going to achieve the eternal association of Bhagavan, of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So Bhagavat Parshva, the eternal associates of the Supreme Lord, are called as the Nitya Parshadas, and already the great Nitya Parshadas, the Pandavas, Draupadi, Kunti, Bhishma, they all had attained this supreme exalted destination, and now was the turn of their descendant Parikshit Maharaj, who is also very clearly stated here that Sadyo Jahuhu, he immediately gave up all material connections and his material possessions, because he was now preparing to go back to the spiritual world, to become, to be reinstated in his original constitutional position as the eternal associate of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. In fact, the specific attainment and achievement of Parikshit Maharaj is further described in 1.19.21 that Sarve Vayam Tavadihasmahetha Kalevaram Yavadasau Vihaya Lokam Param Virajaskam Vishokam Yasyatyayam Bhagavata Pradhanaha. All of us, Sarve Vayam, all of us, Tavad ihasmahetha. We shall all wait here and witness and see how this Parikshit, who is Bhagavata Pradhanaha, who is the foremost devotee of the Supreme Lord, Kalevaram Yavad Asau Vihaya, how he would give up his material body, and Vihaya, how he would Yasyati Ayam, how he would return back to Lokam Param, to Param Lokam, to the supreme world, to the supreme place in the spiritual world, which is here described as Virajaskam and Vishokam, which is completely freed from all material contamination and which is completely freed from all material suffering and lamentation. Vishokam, Virajaskam. So this should be the plan, this should be the supreme ultimate goal of the supreme objective of everyone. This we should understand to be the supreme goal and objective of the human form of life. So just like when we go to an airport or to a railway station, we should be clear of where we wish to go, where our destination is. So likewise here, Parikshit Maharaj is actually very clear about his supreme destination. Even the great sages express here that we all wish to witness how this Parikshit Maharaj is going to give up this material world and go to the supreme spiritual planet. Here Lokam Param Virajaskam Vishokam specifically refers to the supreme supreme abode of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. In their Vyakhyana, in their explanation, the great Acharyas like Jiva Goswami have explained that Lokam Param Virajaskam Vishokam here specifically refers to the supreme abode, the topmost planet even in the spiritual Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual world, which is Goloka Vrindavana, the abode of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So Parikshit was now destined to go back to Goloka Vrindavana, the supreme abode in the Vaikuntha Loka, in the spiritual world. So when the Maharshayaha, when the great sages expressed their wish, they expressed also their resolve that even they would stay back till Parikshit Maharaj goes back home, back to Godhead. Hearing these very sweet and pleasing words, Ashrutya tad Rishiganavacha Parikshit Samam Madhuchyut Guru Chavyalekam Abhashatainan Abhinandya Yuktan Shushrushamanas Vishnoho. Hearing these very pleasing and sweet speeches of the great sages, Parikshit now with the intense desire to hear about the eternal divine nectarian activities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, which are the core essence of the liberated stage. Real Krishna Leela can be relished, can be understood only after the point of liberation. It is later mentioned in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in 10.1.4 that Nivrittatakshair upagiyamanaha. Krishna Katha can properly be recited and heard only after spiritual liberation. So therefore, Parikshit Maharaj is in that most elevated position, and he is now ready to hear the nectar of Krishna Katha from the mouths of the great personalities who have assembled here. And he inquires from them that Tataschava Prichya Mamam Aham Vipriche Vishrabhya Vipra Iti Krityatayam Sarvatmana Mriyamaneshcha Krityam Shuddham Chatatram Grishatabhiyuktaha. Parikshit inquired from all the great sages who had assembled there that please, after proper deliberation, please tell me of the unalloyed, the topmost, the perfect duty of everyone in all circumstances, and also specifically a person who is just about to die. Sarvatmana as well as Mriyamanaha. So what is the supreme occupation of everyone and also of a person who is just about to die? So as these spiritual discussions were happening, at that time, Tatra bhavad bhagavan vyasaputro yadrichaya gham atamano napekshaha alakshyalingo nijalabhatushto vritascha baleravadhuta veshaha. At that very moment, there appeared the great spiritual transcendental personality, the great son of Vedavyasa, who was already a self-realized and God-realized soul, self-realized right from his birth and God-realized after hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from his father Vedavyasa. Tatra bhavad Vyasaputraha, the son of Vedavyasa, who was Alakshyalingaha, whose divine spiritual qualities were not easy easily understood by the common ordinary people. He then arrived at that place. Tam Vyashtavansham Sukumara Pada Karorubahvam Sakapola Gatram. And then there is a most beautiful and charming description of Shukadeva Goswami, the great personality, the principal speaker of the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The son of Vedavyasa, Shukadeva Goswami, was a very young boy, just 16 years old. His legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, forehead, and all the parts of his body were all very delicately and perfectly formed. His eyes were beautifully wide. His nose and ears were highly raised. He had a very attractive face, and his neck was beautifully formed, just like a conch shell, kambu kantham. And in this way, his collarbone, he had a broad chest, he had a deep navel. His abdomen was beautifully striped. He had long arms, curly hair, which were strewn over his beautiful face. He was without any clothes, digambaram vaktra vikirna kesham, and the hue of his body was similar to Lord Krishna. Shyamam sadapivya vayonga lakshmya. He was dark in complexion and very beautiful. Although his physiognomy was not understood by the common people. All the great sages who were assembled there, they could understand the great spiritual transcendental position of Shukadeva Goswami, and all of them rose up from their seats to honor in respect of Shukadeva Goswami, who came and sat on the principal seat, which is known as the Vyasa Asana, the seat of the Guru, of the spiritual master, is also known as Vyasa Asana, because a Guru, a spiritual master, is also the representative of the original Guru, who is Veda Vyasa. So a Guru should always remain chaste and should represent the original Guru, should always repeat the same teachings as given by the original first Guru, that is Veda Vyasa. So in this way, it is very beautifully described in 1.19.30 that Sasamritas tatra mahan mahiyasam brahmagshi rajagshi devagshi sanghaihi vyarochatalam bhagavan yathenduhu grahakshatara nikare paritaha. It is so beautifully described here that in that galaxy of the superstars, of the greatest spiritual personalities of the entire universe, Shukadeva Goswami shone effulgently like the brightest luminary, the brightest effulgent moon. So just like in the night sky, the moon is the most effulgent among the host of all the other luminaries, likewise Shukadeva Goswami, although a young boy of just 16 years, he, with his spiritual advancement, he shone like the brightest luminary in that galaxy of the brightest spiritual personalities of the entire universe. So at that time, when Shukadeva Goswami sat on the Vyasasana, Parikshit Maharaj approached him, Prashantamasina makunthamethasam munim ripo bhagavato bhyupetya pranamya mugdha vahita kritanchalir natva gira sundritayanva pritchad. Parikshit Maharaj approached Shukadeva Goswami, offered his respectful obeisances, and again inquired to Shukadeva Goswami, he first glorified Shri Parikshit Uvacha Aho Adya Vayam Brahman Satsevya Kshatra Bandhavaha Kripaya Tithi Rupena Bhavadbhistirthaka Kritaha. Parikshit Maharaj expressed his greatest good fortune that Shukadeva Goswami had arrived there at his most critical juncture at the time of his death in order to bless him with the supreme instructions of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Parikshit says that Yesham samsmaranat pumsam sadyo shuddhyanti vaikrihaha kim punag dakshana sparsha pada shaucha sanadhibihi. Simply by remembering your good self, a great advanced transcendentalist like Shukadeva Goswami, simply by remembering him, one can immediately purify not only one's own self but one's entire house. So what more can one attain by directly seeing, touching, washing your lotus feet or offering you a seat? Sadhya shuddhyanti vaikrihaha kim punag dakshana sparsha pada shaucha asanadibihi. So therefore Parikshit Maharaj considered himself most fortunate to have Shukadeva Goswami as his supreme spiritual guide, as his spiritual master. And then he placed the same inquiry to Shukadeva Goswami that Ata prichhami samsiddhim yoginam paramam gurum purushasyeha yat karyam mriyamanasya sarvatha. You are the supreme spiritual master of even the great sages and devotees, yoginam paramam gurum, and therefore ata prichhami, I now inquire of you, samsiddhim, how can one attain the highest supreme perfection? Purushasyeha yat karyam, what is the right path and what is the right duty? Please show the way of perfection for everyone, and especially mriyamanasya sarvatha, of a person who is just about to die. Yat shrotavyam atho japyam yat kartavyam nribhi prabho smagtavyam bhajaniyam va bruhi yadva viparyayam. Please instruct me what a person should hear, chant, remember and worship, and also please guide me what a person should not do. So please explain all this to me. So in this way, finally, the concluding verse of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.19.40, Suta Goswami says that Evam abhashita prishtaha saragnya shlakshnaya gira abhashatainan dharmagnyo bhagavan badarayanihi. Being inquired in this manner by the great King Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami then began to speak, then began to impart his most divine and important spiritual instructions. Thus concludes the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus concludes the 19th chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and also thus concludes our 18-day session on the systematic study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But actually, Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. There is no conclusion to the divine narrations of the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. And definitely we are going to take just a short break, and we shall very soon meet again to continue to discuss the Nectarian topics, the most divine and spiritually potent teachings of the greatest among all the Vedic scriptures, the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme guide and friend. The teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam should be the supreme guiding principle in our life, by which we can very easily attain the highest perfection of our life. The teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam are the essence of all the Vedic knowledge. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the refined, the distilled essence of all Vedic scriptures. It is the cream of all Vedic wisdom. It is the ripened fruit of the Vedic desire tree. It is the highest, the topmost of all the Vedic scriptures. It is the direct literary incarnation of the supreme absolute truth, the supreme Lord Shri Krishna. In the Vedic scriptures, it is also described that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the direct divine form of the Satchidananda Vigraha of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, in which the first two cantos represent the two lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. In this first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the main contents are the enquiries by the sages of Naimisharanya and the answers given by the spiritual master Suta Goswami. Then there is the beautiful history of the principle of the main composer of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the history of Vedavyasa, and then there is also the history of the main inspiration of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the great sage Narada Muni. Then we find the narration of the events that unfolded after the conclusion of the battle of Mahabharata, the beautiful prayers offered by Arjuna, by Uttara, and the very, very important and instructive prayers of Queen Kunti by Bhishma Deva. And later we also have the prayers offered by the residents, the women residents of Hastinapura, the departure of the Supreme Lord Krishna to Dwaraka, and the arrival of Krishna to Dwaraka, and the prayers offered, the beautiful prayers offered by the residents of Dwaraka to Krishna upon his arrival. And then we also have the description of the birth of Maharaj Parikshit and the final destination, the liberation of Dhritarashtra, and also the supreme destination attained by the Pandavas, and also the final departure of the Supreme Lord Krishna and the dynasty of the Yadavas. We also have the description and the narration of the arrival of Kali and how he attacked dharma, principles of religion on the entire earth, and how the earth and religious principles were protected throughout the entire planet by Parikshit Maharaj, how he ruled with supreme spiritual authority, and then the events of the cursing of Parikshit by the Brahmana boy Shringi, and how Parikshit Maharaj took the ultimate decision of coming to the banks of Ganga, and the arrival of the greatest transcendentalist of that time, Shukadeva Goswami, to be the supreme guide and spiritual master of Parikshit Maharaj. So this has been our journey so far, and I would like to offer my infinite, unlimited, respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, our supreme benefactor and our supreme friend, our supreme well-wisher and our supreme everything. I would also like to offer my respectful obeisances and would like to dedicate this program to our spiritual master, His Divine Grace Abhayacharanaravindha Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who has so mercifully given the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam for the easy understanding of everyone. I would also like to express my gratitude to the Times Foundation, especially to Anuradha ji and to Kalavati ji and to all the team at the Times Foundation for having taken so much efforts to organize this program. I would also like to express my deep gratitude to all the hearers, to all the viewers, all the audience for their keen interest in the subject matter of the greatest guide of humanity, the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. I would also express my gratitude to all those who have deeply delved into these subject matters and asked many questions. I would also express my gratitude to everyone and offer my sincere prayers to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna to guide everyone in this world to the supreme path, to the supreme teachings, to the supreme guide of the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. We shall soon meet again. So please do join us very shortly. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.